tap it in. Google just dropped Gemini 3.0, right? This is one of the latest and greatest models. And that's not even really what excited me the most about it, right? You can go to their Google AI Studios, and inside their Google AI Studios, right, they have a model um, that is called anti gravity. Now, anti gravity is a big deal, and it's a big deal for a few different reasons, right? Not just because it is a new vibe coding tool. And for those who don't know what vibe coding is, I definitely suggest you go study that and look into what vibe coding is. I don't have time on this live to really just be explaining concepts and consistently going back because I feel like we should be adapted to these things already. And so you're able to vibe code, and more than vibe code, it becomes your partner, right? And with that being said, you can now create you applications, but you do not have to create it in a linear path anymore. Now, the reason why this is good for most people, because most people do not know coding, right? Most people do not know how to design an application whatsoever, right? And the way a person might think of an idea, it might not be in a way that traditional coders would go about building out an MVP model for an application, right? Case in point, I'm building me a few different apps right now. And the way I can go about it now is that I can give the AI references to be like, look, I want this type of tool built into it. I can tell it what my intentions are. I can tell it what I don't want. And it's building it so fast in real time that it's showing me the preview and it's showing me the code. Now, the average person, if you ever listen to somebody giving you a crazy idea, right? They was breaking something down and you'd be like, all right, that's a good idea, but you know that they're not going to execute. Well, we're now in the point time of day and age where you can talk to the internet. And as you're talking to the internet, you're not just asking it questions, right? The internet now becomes agentic to where it becomes a co-builder with you. So you're now asking the internet to build, right? Which in internet, I'm talking about AI. Now, this is important because this is the first generation ever to where we have machines, right? Where they're transformed our computers, they transformed our phones, right? Into business partners, into co founders, right? Into operators within our business, right? And so now what's really missing from the world is imagination and creativity. Because in my first book, I outlined the problem with the education system. The education system had created so many technical thinkers, right? These technical thinkers were people who can, right, follow instructions, right, who can retain information very well, right? They was able to absorb a information base of knowledge. You go get a degree, that means that you've been programmed with information and hopefully you have an understanding of that, and somebody can hire you because they can utilize the knowledge in which you've absorbed, right, and memorize and have expertise in. And so the problem that happened is that was an industrialized society, right? To where you build out a worker base that can work inside these institutions, work inside these corporations for you, right? Because men at one point in time own the machines. And if you own the machines, then you would hire somebody who can operate that machine and you'll give them permission to use your machine to be a part of your workforce. And by being part of your workforce, you're paying them for their time and they're getting rewarded for their time, right? And so we were built in this whole permission based reality, right? To where you can be a great singer, but it wasn't until somebody gave you a award, right? A Grammy, an Oscar, right? A nomination for something. You can be a great actor. It wasn't until you got an Emmy Award, daytime TV, right? Then you all of a sudden get access to more rewards because you're now being validated, right? And so these were like the gatekeepers, right? So you go to a job, you give them a piece of paper to say, hey, I have a degree, right? Now, can I have permission to work for you? They say, yes, thank you. Now you can go earn you a living. And people were able to step up in different degrees, right? But now we're not in that society anymore. I was talking to my partner Keenan. We was talking about acuity, right, versus audacity. And there's some people that just have the audacity to do something. I have a whole lot of audacity. I don't have to be an expert in something to talk about it. I don't have to be an expert in something to explore it, to get into something, right? It's my curiosity that allows me to do it, my audacity, because that's what it means to be human, right? We're discoverers. We're on a mission in life. We get to taste test different things. And people have always tried to get at me for that audacity because they didn't have it, because they grew up in a permission-based society where you wait for somebody to validate you before you can say what you are. You understand me? You can't become a master till a master stamps you, right? And in a lot of ways, that's completely true, right? And then in other ways, it's like, fuck that, right? Because if the master's taking too goddamn long, you gonna waste your whole life saying that, man, you understand me? The sensei and give me the belt. Like, no, because what if you can whoop everybody ass in the dojo? I'm just saying, like, you might be able to train a different way. And if you got that audacity to go figure it out, right? To skip the steps that the institutions have created and still go get the results, right? Because my whole thing for when I was younger, I used to always think my parents always wanted me to go to college. I went to college for a year. I dropped out because I ended up catching a case, right? And after I beat that case, I never ended up going back to college. But I used to think about it. I say, why do you want me to go to college? It's because you want me to get the rewards that come along with the degree, right? Not because you really care about college institution, because you never went to college. So the experience can't be that important because you never really actually had it to tell me about the experience to say you need to have this experience, right? It's just that you knew that you were in an industrial society, and the only way that the world would see my value is if they gave me permission based on me going through the trainings and the prerequisites that's required to be valuable in society. And now that that is no longer in existence, I don't have to go through that no more because I looked at it and said, wait a minute, we have the internet, we got social media. So what if I can figure out different ways? Because the social media, the root word of that being the media part. So wait a minute, the media controls things, control perceptions of things. That I got media where I can be social on, I can talk. That makes me the media. In a simplified way, that's where my brain went. Other people, it took them longer to catch on to this concept. That's why you just now seeing a lot of intellectuals getting online because they've been waiting for permission to do it, right? They seen other people do it. And because most of those people are followers, they are not leaders. They're very intelligent, right? Can intellectualize things in a very great capacity, right? Can give you context, can give you great depth of knowledge and information. And part of their strength is also part of the weakness because the discipline that they learn to gather the discipline of the expertise also stopped them from having the audacity to jump in industries and areas in which they were never given permission. So when you have a permissionless society where it's saying that whatever you have audacity to do, whatever you have curiosity for, whatever you imagine, whatever you want to wander into, then you should just go jump into that thing. But that's not what the people who got the degrees and things, because what that does is it invalidates what they have. If anybody can just do anything that they want to and be anybody that they want to be, you understand me? Then what is the value of you spending all this money to go get these degrees? The prestigiousness of the titles in which you embed yourself with that become your identity now lose their value. So in a world of social media and the internet, and this is important to understand as we're going into this artificial intelligence conversation, this agentic AI conversation, because there's a shift in consciousness that has to happen for both the intelligent class of people, the intellectual class of people, right? There's a shift between their audacity and their acuity. You're going to have to be able to jump into areas in which you might not have the credentials for, but now the new credentials, it's just the audacity to do it. Just get started, right? The idea that it's going to take 4 years to do something, that is over with. The idea that you even need to go to school for a whole day to learn subjects, that is done. The intelligent schools, the new schools of the future are packing clusters of information, right, in 2 hours, and they're optimizing on cognitive output. When we get to a point where we're able to really separate and look at the masses, like boys and girls should never be taught the same. They shouldn't even be taught in the same schools because they are cognitively different from the neurological development, right? But a lot of people are stunted in their growth because you are being taught like a girl, or a girl is being taught like a boy, or you're in these class sizes that are too large for you to have specialized knowledge or customized attention, right, to your original self and your original self design. So you've never had the capability to explore your true intelligence because it was not in an environment that was meant to bring it out. It was an environment that can extract those who would be the best in a technical environment, a permission-based system. This is important to understand because if you cannot make the shift of consciousness to expand your horizon, to expand your belief, it's going to be hard for you to navigate in a world, right, that requires you to navigate and create new beliefs all the time, have new understandings, to pivot, to have cognitive flexibility. Some people be trying to make fun of me for picking up many different subjects and talking about it. And I've always looked at that as society's way of trying to control you, right? Because the consciousness of the most minds would be like, he's doing too many things. What do you do? I like the fact that you cannot pinpoint what I do, but I'm still able to make a living. I'm still able to hire my family. I'm still able to travel the world. I'm still able to have impact and influence. And yet you cannot put me in a box. So therefore, you feel like you don't know how to control me. So you have a problem with things you cannot control. And you think that that's a bad thing when the whole time I look at it as praise because I don't live in a world of permission, right? I got a line in my song that said, we don't ask for permission, we just go on that mission. The permission is based on systems of control that require loyalty and obedience to that system so that they can maintain power. It has nothing to do with you having power. As we're going and transitioning into an age of Aquarius that is not this dominated system of hierarchies, right? It is circular systems. It is council models. It is not one at the top and everybody at the bottom. This is the era where you get to actualize, maximize, and synchronize. And I know you probably don't understand what that means. It sounds like I'm just throwing out a bunch of words. But if you think about actualization, which is going into the internal self, right? Internal self and bringing out all that is, right? Getting past survival mode, going to the higher ladders of consciousness, right? Becoming your true self. That is what our generation was taught, the Maslow's pyramid. But consciousness does not exist in linear forms or any pyramidal forms as well. So even that particular pyramid was not enough, and it was only a pyramid of control that exists within its time construct, and that time construct was the previous age. Now, as we're in a new one where the worlds are being torn down, where the walls are being torn down, where the systems are being torn down, where the narratives are being torn down, right? What is the next generation focused on? Well, some of these things that we consider to be weird, we're looking at the other generation and they're just trying to hack. They're trying to self-maximize, not self-actualize. So they're looking at ways to be like, man, I was born ugly. How do I maximize? That's why you get this ultimate surgery culture, right? They're looking at ways to try to understand the way the human mind works and then maximize their opportunities because they say, well, if I was born ugly, how do I fix this to still give me access to the rewards that being beautiful gives me? Right? If I don't have the intellectual capability, then how do I utilize the machines to still be able to get access to what intellect gives me without actually being the intellectual? Right? It is the maximizing, right? Which is more of utilizing external systems when actualizing is more so internal systems. And so the new shift is how do you, because then you get a generation that maximizes itself. They get the money, they get these things, but inside they're hollow. So they don't have a true identity and don't know where to go. Right? This is a very big problem. And then you have a generation that actualized, that became so much, but have so little resources and external ability to maximize self, to make one bigger. So it's you become and you've actualized so much of your inner self, but you have no power. And you feel like you've reached a limit on what you can gain and obtain in the world. And so you just continue to try to actualize more things, internalizing ideas in the abstract, right? Become your power base. You throw more things to your identity, more degrees that you can get, right? You just keep adding on these things to try to actualize more and more and more and more and more of the internal self. Where the other generation say, man, I want external. Maybe I don't have a degree, but that don't mean I can't get the money that comes along with the degree. So you got a generation that does not have guidance, right? But they actually have so much things that they maximize on self. So yeah, they're going to chase the clout because they understand what the clout gives you without actually having the real money, power, and respect. But they don't have the values, the morals, right? Some of them, the moral compass, the principles. And that's where the disconnect between the younger and the older generation is happening. So this is why the younger generation, in a lot of ways, we've seen a peak on the internet where they're decreasing some of the usage, and Gen Z is wanting to get off the internet a little bit and go in real life, where millennials and boomers are still holding on to the internet because they're trying to now maximize. Where they be like, look, we maximize on the internet. Now I want to actualize. I want to connect to real people, to real places, to real things. They want to have a real life experience because they were born on the internet. Now, when you understand that these two generations need each other, there has to be a synchronicity, a synchrony, right, of the actualized self and the maximized self. So let's skip past this for a while because that's a lot of concepts I'm throwing at y'all. Let's get back to the AI. So how does this make sense in what I'm talking about with the AI? Well, let's look at it like this. When you were younger, what were your ideas when you were a child? Right? What did you want to build? What were the concepts, the possibilities? A lot of those things that you let go, that disappeared, that died, that you don't remember no more. You have to get back to that self, right? Because that self was not dependent upon money. That self was not dependent upon your resources, title, identity, none of those. Those were just things you desired, the undying curiosity, imagination you had as a child, the things that you wanted to shift about the world, the things that you wanted to build, the things you wanted to invent. There was always an idea you have for an application because you was thinking about something you can create external that you can add to the world that will be of value. And so many people lost those ideas, lost that imagination. Why? Because we start absorbing everybody else's ideas. When you have so many images and so many pictures to absorb consistently and so much content, you don't have to imagine it yourself, right? Children often that have less have greater imagination because they have actual less than they actually have in their environment. They have to imagine it in their mind. You understand me? You got to imagine the meals you want to have. You got to imagine the flow or the clothes you want to wear. You have to imagine a life that you want to live because you're not living the life that you want. So children that grow up spoiled, they grow up with so many things around them. There's nothing left to the imagination to become. So they're left without an identity of who do I need to come to gain these things. So they don't have actualization, empty and hollow. And so this is why we have a generation that is spoiled. You've seen it all. You've seen it all. Except that which comes from your God self, that which comes from your true self. What comes from you? You've seen what comes from the world, but do you know what comes from you? And now we have tools that are saying, look, you don't need permission to build with these tools. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to start a business. You don't have to be a coder to create apps. You don't have to be none of those things. We are now allowing you to do whatever you want to do. But what is your will? What is your desire? What are your ideas? What's in your imagination? And now we have a generation stuck like, damn, I don't know what to create. And you're ungrateful of the access because you don't know what you can do with it. So all of this came from me looking at this anti-gravity that just came on. That Gemini dropped. The Gemini 3 dropped and the anti-gravity dropped. And you're allowed to not to just use these tools as a partner. I mean, use these tools to just say, hey, make this for me in vibe code. It becomes a partner. You're working with it. You're working through your ideas and it's building it out for you. And the thing that we lack the most is clarity and to speak intentional. I have a meeting later on today because we're putting out this whole entire platform and virtual tour of number one, influential communication. People need to be able to speak clearly. When we start talking about prompting is just communication of ideas, right? But can you speak in an intentional manner? Because when I'm speaking to AI, I'm really speaking what my intentions are more than anything. And if I can clarify my intentions, my references, my context, right, on things, then the AI can work better. For me to externalize ideas that I have internal, because there's so much complexity about me. How do I simplify that in a way? And so I see a generation that is confused on what to do next, when what to do next is to build. We have access to all the information in the world now, or at least enough information that you could ever possibly need, because you have more than any other generation that's ever possibly needed, ever. But what we lack is execution. Now, if you've been to one of my shows, you understand what I teach. I teach people how to get the mind to perform and organize over time so that you can execute. And if you follow the regimens that I teach in the next 60 to 90 days, you can see your life transform completely different than what it is. So when I see tools like this come out and they're not the rage of what we're talking about, right? They're not at the point of the forefront of what we're speaking on. There's a missing element that's happening right now. The technological development that is supposed to be brought out, the imagination that's supposed to be brought out. This should be an age that we've dreamed of. This should be an age to where you say, man, every revolutionary dreamed of. We talk about the Black Panthers. They created 60 plus programs. How come we can't utilize these technological applications and our access and resources to create more programs than those of the people who had in the past? The only ones that we duplicate is the food program. Yeah, we go give them some free food, go give them some turkeys and stuff. That is instant gratification. Solving problems of the poor because they think in survival loops. So if you're thinking, oh, who just gave me something right now? Yes, they're going to be grateful for you helping them out, but they're going to be poor forever in the future and continuously need your help. That is not solving the problems of the future. Our generation responsibility is, number one, to be grateful in the time in which we're living, because we could have been born 50 years later, 20 years later. You could be Gen Alpha or Beta, rather, and not know nothing about the previous world. You think the way that we remember the world, they will? They're born in 2025. Their world, comparative to ours, is two different dimensions. It's like a split in universes. It's going to be so vastly different. You couldn't even imagine it. Like, we're still close to the world of the 1900s, 1800s, 1600s. We can still connect to what it was like to be a human in those eras without some of the comforts of technology and luxuries that exist to us today. But you know how different it is that you were not born in the era where the artificial intelligence, the robotic machines, the quantum infusion machines are cut on, and you're just absorbing and you're just in the world. You're born in a virtual reality, a simulation. Instead, you actually get to be a part of the building of the next era. You get to decide where things go. You get to decide where the future is. You're born in this era where you get to have input on the future as it's taking shape. How the tools get used, the way it shouldn't get used, what we fight for, what we fight against, what we go for, what we build. As a world falls, and I think people are confused when we think about a world falling. It's a transitional state of a world dying. All concepts are being challenged. All ideologies are being challenged. All philosophies are being challenged. The question, because our generation was so hell-bent on deconstructing things, deconstructionism of gender, of sexuality, of masculinity, of femininity, of all the entities and infinities and beyond. But what were we building in place? And that's what we have not gotten good at yet, is the replacement, the renaissance, the rebuilding, the higher spiral, right, of invention and innovation and construction. We just deconstructed from the point of deconstructing. I thought about this when I was early, young. I was like, damn, they just taking away things, destroying things. But what are they building? So this is the era where our generation, if you were born in the time to where you are cognitively capable of building, then it is your responsibility to build. You want to know the purpose of your life, you have to look at the time in which you were born. and look at the cognitive capability that you have in that time in which you were born and how you can shape reality. If you were born in a time where you were free and there was other people that weren't free, and you have the intellectual and academic capability to speak on behalf of those people and lobby on behalf of those people, then you're supposed to be an abolitionist. That is your job. You're looking at the time you're living in, you're looking at your skills, your gifts, your talents, right? And you add and you contribute to the planet. Well, we're living in a time of technological development, right? Empire decay. And so we're saying, what you supposed to do? Well, what can you add to the time that we're living in? What can you add based on who you are, what you're aware of, and what you can do, and when you are? When you were born matters. Because there's going to be a time in 2050, some people going to be 50. Some people going to be 60. So what should a 50-year-old be doing in 2050? A 60-year-old based on your skills, your gifts, your talents, your access, your resources, your capabilities. Where we are the generation that was born in a time that will decide damn near the next 100 years, 30, 1,000 years, the great transitioning. What are we supposed to do? We were supposed to build the world that the next generation inherit. See, the civil rights era messed up a lot of people because we thought that was the only era happening, but there was, during the civil rights era, there was the do for self era. The do for self era was always pushing the no permission era. We don't need permission to get started to build. While people were boycotting the Birmingham buses or whatever, there was other people deciding to say, let's just have our own buses. There was always two sides of the coin, but the school system taught you one side of the flip. They ain't teach you. You know what Marcus Garvey is, but you don't really know his program. You're not really familiar with his blueprint, not the way you are with Martin Luther King. You learn about W.E.B. Du Bois, but you don't really know why he went to Liberia and why he said the Boule failed. He understood, similar to Martin, that he was integrating people in a system that wouldn't work. You don't really know these people. You don't know, you know of Elijah Muhammad, but you don't know about how he built what he built, the intricacies within that system. So you're left handicapped from your own past, and you're mad at a Donald Trump and arresting him, erasing your history, which you ain't learned your own. You're not actually intimately familiar with it, so you cannot absorb it. You cannot absorb the frameworks and the mental frameworks and the processes that allowed them to have the most successful, independent, permissionless movements. Everything in which that is in the consciousness of the people, for the most part, the collective memories is based on permission. Yeah, they work with the system. There was other people working to build our own systems. And now we're handicapped from that because that knowledge is not within you. So when you get access to tools to build your own system, there's no willfulness, there's no vision, there's no ideas in the mind, because they have carefully and strategically and surgically cut them out of your curriculum, your upbringing, your life. Oh no, stay away from that. Oh, don't learn about that. You ain't get the curriculum with Dr. Clark Anderson Powernomics when you were younger? So when I see agentic AI, I heard Robert Smith talking about this, on how there's $1 billion workers that represent $40 trillion in value, and there's going to be a disruption to that, because the agentic AI essentially allows you the ability to be able to create infinite employees. So now you can increase efficiency and effectiveness, right, on a whole nother level. So all they're looking to do, people especially that have fiduciary duties for companies that need to consistently raise profit, they're trying to replace people, right, with machines and technology that are more efficient. And you can be mad, but the human error that comes from hiring people that don't want to execute, that's always having a problem, you start losing money, and especially as a Black business. You understand me? Or a business, because Black business don't really exist. It's just business. You can't afford it. And then what happens? They go home poor, you go home poor. Business doesn't work. People look at you as a failure. You're not getting pick me up money. You're not getting the support that other communities get because we don't have lending in our community. We don't have the banks. We don't have the even down there the micro lending in the community. So the access to capital is not there. So you don't have failure money. You definitely don't have fuck you money. So therefore, you're taught to be better than everybody else instead of having that doesn't require you to be better than everybody else. Because true equality ain't telling every generation, oh, you got to be 10 times better than everybody. Da, 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 da. I get tired of hearing that. How about we just create our own alternative systems? So when I see these new AIs that come out, each time is an opportunity building up this black world brain that says, look, how about we build our own everything? See, I'm gonna tell you the trick that's happening on social media right now. If you notice in your algorithm, you're seeing people getting skyrocketed views. I mean, going crazy. And they're talking about highly intellectual subjects, man. The people going crazy. They're talking about things you would think, man, I thought they would get banned for this. You know what I'm saying? They going in on the government and different systems and everything. And you're like, damn, they letting y'all say this. They letting y'all. It's permissioned. It's commissioned. Why? Do we not think about these things? Why? Why you can just talk about the Epstein files? You can talk about the Israel. You talk about everything now openly because they figured out something, and this is something you need to understand that's going on in the world that we're living in today. The goal is accelerationism. Accelerate the downfall of democracy, accelerate the degrading trust in the system, though, the alt-right, the white supremacists, all of them, they all agree with this. The tech elites, they all agree with this model and this idea that a democracy is an unstable system, that the U.S. Constitution was born in a more simpler time, and the founding fathers did not account for the complexity of the new world. And in a world where they have to operate with a sense of urgency because they understand that their time is coming to an end. So they're keeping it in mind with everything that they're doing, that they need to create the next system of power. So that means the current system of power must fall. So every time you see something that is pointing to the downfall, even though it is what we've always wanted, a system reset, you have to be careful because if you're not building a system that is next, you're just going to fall into the next one. And so as you think that the government is the biggest problem, the government don't even have the power. The government, shit, it is the corporations, the institutions. So now we're going to look at what's going on in China. And China rolled out digital IDs that allow people that forces compliance upon citizens and take away rights, and had this dystopian society that they just made active completely. They got a new one. They can watch everything you got going on. This whole super social credit system. So they know that if the government tries to roll out the CBDCs, the government tries to roll out the digital IDs, people will fight back against these things. Look how long it took them to roll out the real ID, right? And so they said, wait a minute, how about we just have Apple do it instead? Because everybody already got a phone. It's convenience. It makes sense logically. But then you have to be careful with the systems that's going in place. And then you got systems like Palantir, the all-seeing eye, and all of this stuff going on. So it ain't the government that's creating the systems, it's the private companies. And if the whole goal in the first place was to accelerate the downfall of democracy and then privatize power into these tech companies, and if that's the future, because these are now the new empires, they're worth $5 trillion. Is you crazy? By the time you are thinking you're killing one villain, there's a super villain behind that villain already. You know what I mean? It's like in the Avengers, they thought they was getting rid of one invasion. They knocking them down. Then there's a little wormhole at the end. And then that's Thanos peeking like, I'm on my way to snap y'all in a second. So this is why they don't mind allowing you to get as many views and comments and likes and all of these different things, even though they can't control all of these things, right? But it's more so because participation in the system gives the system power. As long as it's online and not offline, then they still have all the power. As long as it's online and not offline. You get what I'm saying? You see what's happening with the Gen Z around the world? That's offline power. But see, as long as it's online, it does not matter. Specifically on their channels. So if we're not using the tools, mastering the tools, creating alternative systems with these tools, alternative platforms, and if we don't have it in our belief system that is possible, and we cannot organize over time to do what we know, then of course you will never be excited for a new tool coming out like anti-gravity, like Gemini 3.0, you know what I mean? Or any of these tools that are in existence right now. Because they've gotten us to just think about money. I mean, we got so many tools and all we think about is money. It's crazy, right? Then when you get money, then you actually have no plan for it. You're just a rich nigga. You're just a rich bitch, right? That's what's being said. But what you gonna do with the money? No real principles, just another turkey drive next year. No power, no real engagement, no unified organization, no institutional construct. Oh, I'm just gonna go to the church and give my tithes and try to heal inside. You understand me? From doing nothing and being nothing. Just made this little capitalism. We turned the dollar into the almighty God. And then we think we can buy our way into heaven instead of having to build it. Build the kingdom. Your children should be learning these tools, this mastery, these machines right now. You should be learning them. There's nothing more important than that's going on in the news. None of this other shit, everything else is just a distraction. Only thing we should be doing right now is building. You see, other communities are quiet. I don't really hear from the Indian community like that. Maybe it's I'm in a different algorithm, all right? I don't really be hearing from the Asian community like that, man. Black and brown people distracted, though. And you are the one that must stay distracted because you have the most potential to use these machines in a greater way. And the thing about it is that there's always a race. When there was a 5G race and China won that race and they now probably got 12G capabilities, but you set the standard and everybody else has to follow you. So if you're not setting the standard for the AI usage, for the robotic usage, for the agentic usage and things of that nature, then you're behind having to follow in somebody else's footsteps. So I must keep you distracted so you don't set the standard and be in control of the system. I just had this on my mind as I was sipping my Supermind coffee, my cognitive boost for the morning. I have a challenge coming up soon, right? For those who want to shift their consciousness, those who want to start building out your applications, your digital products, those who want to get better in their communication skills, those who don't just want to market or brand, they want to world build to where you can invite people into your world. And it's much more sticky to where you're not chasing attention, right? Having super communities that you can be a part of, right? We're out of the era where you have to wait to be told what to do. What we really need to get you to do is to be able to perform better. It's a performance issue that we have. It's not a will, it's not a moral, it's not a discipline. It is systems and processes issues that we have. And if you can perform better, then your life gets better. You succeed much faster. I'm working on writing my books, all of the books that I need to have out so that the people can just absorb the information and execute. Because we're going to have a generation, a whole community of high performers. Everybody else, I'll let you stay on the outside, mad at the world because you're not building your own. I'll let you stay mad at the world because you're not building your own. But for me and my tribe, is build your world season. That's what Zion is really about, the platform to create digital nations and to have groups that are working on projects together, that's investing together, building wealth together. You understand me? Traveling together, working out together, sharing information and briefs together. You understand me? It ain't for everybody. I only need 144,000, and we ain't gonna start off with that many. We need a select group of high-level individuals. You understand me? The world brain that can build out our world. Because if we start thinking about the future, people are confused. We say, what future? Oh, what's in your mind? What's in your imagination? As soon as I get off this, I'm about to finish building my application. I just wanted to take this quick break to remind you to start building your own. Stay tuned. I'm not. Ever since I was a kid, I was taught about the world fall of America happening. What that book say? But I used to always think like, damn, okay, it's gonna fall. I'm like, that's cool, but like, where I'm gonna be at? It's gonna fall. Am I gonna be there when it's falling? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard for me to look forward to a fall if I'm under it. You feel me? It's hard for me to be like, damn, okay, yes, sir, brother's about to fall. Wait a minute. My young brain was sitting there like, where we gonna be at? Like they said that's gonna come down and the whole thing. And I'm like, okay, am I gonna be next to them when they have like? And so when you kind of get a little deeper in understanding things, man, you number one, the fall of America or the fall of the world, the end of the world. A world is thoughts, ideas, thought forms, right? Concepts, systems, institutions. But it's mostly in the mind. The war that's being played out right now, the war that's being played out rather, is a war in the mind, right? And so this war that's in the mind is a cognitive one because they realize that, you know, the greatest way they're hacking people, I mean, things right now is through people, not through machines. That is cognitive warfare is controlling how you think so they can control what you think. They don't have to limit your information anymore. They just control how you think. So when you receive information, right, they're controlling how you perceive that and what you think about it. Oh, it's a game. And so this is where the mental warfare comes in, and you have to have a level of I seen a coin term by this sister named digital resilience, right? But digital literacy as well. You have to understand how your own mind works. So, family, I don't have much time. Be on the lookout for when we do our new virtual tour to keep you all up to date on all these things. If you don't want to have to learn by yourself, and you want to get the game directly from us, and by us, I mean me and my team, right? Looking to really take some people to the next level going in 2026. Y'all know I do this at the end of every year, right? We get people prepared for the future. This time, I was able to sit down and really work out my systems, my AI processes, especially when it comes to building, creating digital products so that you can have income going into the next 2026, new ways to pay your bills, infinite wealth strategies. You understand me? You should not be confused about the future. You should be very clear. You should feel very calm about what's going to happen, right? You should not be worried about nothing because, especially as a man, men are not good with worrying. We're not good with the emotional part, right? Our brains neurologically did not develop for us to be in stress. So you have to be calm. You know what I'm saying? And so if you need to go work out to relax yourself, whatever you need to do, you need to be calm. You got to de-stress your body so that you can focus your mind. You know what I mean? Go pick up these damn vibe coding tools. Go pick up this new AI, right? Go develop you a workflow that allows you to increase your output to 10x what you're doing, right? Join the community, get you a coach, be a part of a program, touch some grass, get outside, man, get active with it. You know what I'm talking about? Listen, man, if you want to replay this and watch this over, go do it. I'm about to go finish building. You can go to the Google AI Labs. Once you get there, make sure you log in, and then you can go check out their vibe code. You click on that, and then you can start building. And you can start building whatever you want. And you have a code assistant, so you can have no code background, right? It means that you have zero experience, and you can still start creating these applications and start making them live. The one thing we don't have in this era is excuses. Get you some Supermind, whether you're getting that mushroom coffee or that mushroom tea. Get that brain boost because it's all about cognitive performance. That is the asset of the future. Why you think that Nike just created some shoes, right? That utilizes the ancient, Chinese systems of qi when it comes to the foot. And as you walk, it presses upon this particular point in your foot that is connected to the nerves in your brain that keeps you focused. So, right. So people that got ADHD and things of that nature, right, which is the whole world now, they're smart because I think they call the something mind point O's or something like that. But every company is now hiring neuroscientists, philosophers, because they need to make cognitive products. I'm just always ahead of my time when it comes to these things because I understand where the world is going. And I know that protecting your cognition, protecting your focus, protecting your attention is the wave of the future. Instead of grabbing people's attention, the business model of the future is how do we protect it? You know what I'm talking about? And so Supermind is just that. I take a sip of this before 12 o'clock to get me started. Then I have my tea later on to calm, de-stress my body, still energize me so I can finish what I started. And it becomes a whole ritual. You know what I'm talking about? I got some of that tea back there, matter of fact. I was just in here designing new product cans, but that's that reishi turkey tail, all of that good for the brain. Y'all have a blessed one. Y'all support the new business. We have new shows coming out on Patreon. We just uploaded one with Nature Jab. That's a really good one. Go watch that one. With AJ McQueen, that's another Patreon only right now special. Yeah, we still doing the long form content. It's still out there. High level conversations are still flowing, but some of these are private right now. You feel me? We got to build up the capital. We've been doing this for a long time, and so we got to make sure that we can continue to be able to do this in the future. But you can go to a Supermind, that's A as an apple, supermind.com, and you can go support the business. Peace to the family, peace to the gods. I appreciate y'all. Bro, this shit is crazy. I got y'all in here chat. I didn't even realize y'all was still on. I'm over here working. Y'all ain't even tell me, man. Y'all just in here watching. I really went to work right afterwards. Nobody even told me, man. Y'all just in here watching the God. Okay, okay. Yeah. I'm happy because I'm out here really trying to build this thing out. Let me go ahead and end the stream though, man. Y'all be blessed.